Hi everyone, this is Charlotte Eléa with the 5th video in the Embracing Vulnerability series. So today I want to talk about a really important topic when it comes to emotions and vulnerability, and that is boundaries, emotional boundaries. So important for us to talk about. And I am tentatively titling this video, "You're Not Going Crazy." We'll see if that sticks, because I want to begin by talking about or focusing this video on an experience that is so common for all of us empaths, intuitives, sensitive types, emotional types. A type of experience that you have likely had since you were a child, you may have had, I definitely have had. And so I want to start by telling you a little story from my childhood about this type of experience. So when I was around 8 or 9 years old, my family took a vacation to New England. I grew up in Southern California, youngest of 3 siblings. My parents married. And we traveled around several of the states, and then we landed at a cabin in New Hampshire that was on the peninsula of a lake. And it was incredibly idyllic. There were ducks with ducklings swimming about. There were rowboats for us to wander around the lake in. We could swim. It was completely quiet. Tons of stars at night. Wonderful and relaxing, and kind of like the idyllic, perfect family vacation, right? Except that one night particularly, I just got so upset. And I remember just emoting and crying and complaining, and I just felt awful. And I didn't know why I felt awful. And I couldn't explain to any of my family members why I felt awful. And so they were all just so confused. And they didn't know how to help me, and I didn't know how to help myself. And it ended up being this experience that kind of tainted the whole trip, for me at least, because I was feeling such big feelings, and there was no one there. There was no one there that knew how to soothe me, and I couldn't soothe myself. And my emotions just felt like they got bigger and bigger as I got more and more confused, and as my family just kind of perplexed at me, like, why are you so upset? If you can't tell us what's wrong, we can't help you. And I think that the next day I eventually settled down, but I remember throughout the trip having kind of more mini versions of that episode. And I had these types of episodes throughout my childhood, actually. And I grew up believing, in part, that I was kind of crazy, that my emotions were just crazy and out of control. And that that they didn't mean anything, that they would just kind of come out of the blue, and I felt ashamed about it, that they felt too much, and that I had to keep them kind of contained and inside. And it took me years to learn, through therapy in part, that the reason why my emotions were so big and I'd have these outbursts was that it wasn't just my emotions that I was carrying. I actually had taken on the emotions of everyone in my family. That in fact, on this idyllic vacation in New Hampshire in the woods, everything wasn't okay. Everyone was pretending like it was okay, that we were all just this happy family, but we actually weren't. And I was the scapegoat for those emotions to go into. I was incredibly sensitive and empathic and intuitive child, and I was, as I've talked about before in this series, I was incredibly emotionally expressive, and so I expressed the emotions for everybody. And as I grew up and I found myself in romantic relationships, this pattern repeated itself. So how this would look like is that, say we would be having, I would get upset and we'd be having an argument. And I would be speaking what I knew to be kind of happening in the room with her, what was going on with us, by what I was feeling. And then she would look at me like, no, that's not it at all. No, that's not what I'm feeling. No. If you're saying you're feeling that way, that must be what you're feeling. And, you know, I don't have a problem. Apparently you have the problem. And how this ended up feeling was that I was going crazy, because she would just be completely denying the truth of what I was feeling. And then I would be completely perplexed about where this was coming from within myself, right? But it had to be coming from somewhere, so I assumed it was coming from me. And I would be left in that place of, like, it's like this jaggedness within myself, that I'm feeling these things, but it's not lining up with the truth of what I know to be true, right? And so what I grew to realize was, during those moments when I would be feeling like I was starting to go crazy, I would actually be holding the emotions of someone else who couldn't hold them themselves. So there is actually a word for this. This is an experience that intuitive professionals are very familiar with, empathic professionals, because we have learned that this happens, right? And we have learned then to try to build boundaries around it, which we're going to talk about. There's actually a clinical term for this that I learned when I studied clinical psychology, and it's called projective identification. And I want to talk about that because the origin of this phenomenon of being able to take on the emotions of another person and then express those emotions actually serves a purpose. And it serves a purpose with the baby and its mother or caretaker. So babies, when they're new to the world, they feel such overwhelming feelings for their little tiny bodies, right? And their little tiny systems, that they can't contain them all. And so they express them, they cry. And then the mom comes, or the caretaker, father, and soothes the baby and takes on those little baby emotions for the child, for the baby, and soothes them and then returns them to the baby. Right? And so it's a taking on and then returning. And this is an entirely healthy and capable process, because we're just holding little babies' emotions. We can hold little babies' emotions for them. We're built to be able to do that. Our mature, older adult selves can contain and process baby emotions. But what ends up happening is that this process gets repeated in different ways throughout our lives when we're an empathic and intuitive person. So somebody who perhaps did not have the best upbringing and wasn't able to learn how to contain their emotions and process them by themselves, by their mothers or caretakers, then end up repeating this pattern with the people in their lives who are empathic and intuitive and will hold it. And this all happens on an unconscious level. And so they don't realize that they're doing it. So often when you're taking on, if you're an intuitive empathic person and you're taking on the emotional experiences of someone else, they don't realize that they are part of this process with you. Their reality is most likely that they are either denying their emotions, they're just not aware that they're feeling anything, or they actually think that they're just pushing them away, right? And avoiding them. So, but instead of pushing them down, what ends up happening is they're actually pushing them out to you. So, unfortunately, for those children like myself, like many of you, empathic and intuitive children, had to take on the emotions of the adults around us. And how can a child contain and process the emotions of an adult. She or he can't. She can't. It's going to end up making her feel like she's going crazy. She's going to break down. She's not going to be able to do it. But then once we learn the pattern, we have to unlearn it in order for it not to repeat itself. So if you feel that this happens in your life, you do have a choice. And well, first of all, how to identify this, right? How do I identify when this is happening to you? So it is always so important to own your own emotional truths first. Always put yourself emotionally first. What you know to be true is true. So if you are feeling something, it belongs to somebody, right? So you're never going crazy. You're never going crazy. The second step, so owning your truth, owning what you know to be true around you, whether it belongs to you or somebody else. The second step is, if it makes you feel like you're going crazy, if it doesn't align with what you know, with what you feel emotionally, right? If you got kind of two things going on, or just doesn't feel in alignment with how you typically express yourself emotionally, if it doesn't align with what your wisdom and knowledge has to say about the situation, you've got that jagged experience kind of happening inside you like I talked about before, likely that emotion does not belong to you. So this is where you have a choice, because you need to be able to consent to this experience, right? That it all happens on an unconscious level, and those around you are not kind of consciously forcing these emotions onto you. But with that said, you still need to be able to consent to the experience. There is a difference between remaining empathic and compassionate to other people's emotional experiences while not taking them on as our own. So that's where the difference is, and that's where we need to be able to make a choice. And that's where it's really powerful to name the experience. So being able to say to somebody, or even just say to yourself, I'm feeling this feeling, but it does not belong to me. Is this what are you feeling this? Or, you know, as intuitive and empathic people, we have great insight into what other people are likely experiencing, right? And so we can name it for them. And in that naming, we're then building that boundary with ourselves, saying, okay, so this is their world, and this is my world. And then, if they take ownership over that emotion, that experience, wonderful. If they don't, there's nothing else we can really do, right? We can't force another person to take emotional responsibility for themselves. It's up to them at that point. And if they don't, then we can at least state our emotional needs. As we consciously shift and create that boundary between this is you and this is me, it creates an unconscious shift as well, and that will get communicated to the other person, whether we explicitly state it or not. But if we do choose to own our emotional needs and vocalize them, it has powerful potential to transform relationships. This stuff transforms relationships, guys. It does, in very subtle ways. Even when you don't speak it to that person, because you are shifting, and then they are shifting as well. They might keep trying, their unconscious might keep trying to kind of unload on you. But as you begin to transform it into compassion and empathy from a bit of a distance, they're going to be able to receive it in a very different way, right? And they might actually begin taking responsibility for their emotions. You never know, or they might not. And that's up to them. Like I said, That is totally up to them. If you do speak it to them, though, here's the thing. If you do say it, it has the potential to bring you and that person much closer, because they will really be able to, if they really see it as a gift, if they see that this gift that you are offering them, like, oh, okay, so she can really see things in a way that I haven't been able to see, and they can begin taking responsibility for those emotions that maybe you have been experiencing, that can really, really open things up between the two of you. It's vulnerability at play, right? Vulnerability breaks down those walls. And I just want to accentuate the fact that this is a gift. This is a gift that we all have. Being able to hold other people's emotions for them, whether we choose to, like in projective identification, actually take them on and process them and return to the person, or if we choose to put up that boundary, right, and remain compassionately, empathically connected, though at a safe distance for ourselves, that is still a gift. That all of those things are such a gift for that other person who we are in relationship to. So remember that this is a gift. And those around you might be able to see it as a gift, and they might not. They might not be able to take it in. And that's when we have to come to acceptance about the people we're close to and their own processes and their own journeys. As long as you are honest with yourself and your own emotions and your own emotional truths, that's all you need to do. Okay, thank you for watching, guys. This is the 5th video. We're well on our way, more than halfway through this series. Please come on over to the Facebook group, the Sacred Sojourners Space, and read the prompt for the week and share your own reflections on this video, your own reflections with that experience of going crazy, your own reflections on what emotions you tend to hold for other people. If you do that, what experiences you had from childhood. I would love to hear it all. And come on over to my website as well, dreamintuition.com, where you can get to know all of my offerings. I offer one-on-one intuitive counseling sessions. I offer intuitive tarot readings. I also have a couple groups in the planning stages. I can't say anything about it at this moment because I'm still allowing it to intuitively get downloaded and processed. Okay, I will see you all again next week. I'll see you then. Okay.